Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gavinsky's Tutorials. Today I'm going to do a walkthrough of Sqsl Mills. This developer is also called Michal Macura on the Appstore, Michal Macura. I hope my pronunciation's right. But his website is seqsual.com. It's always very confusing when developers have a whole bunch of different names. So Mills is available for Mac, M1 Mac or higher, and iPad. And it is a very quirky sequencer. So I'm just jumping through a few presets that I saved when playing around with this afternoon. They sound a bit samey, it's just because I saved them with the same note quantization. And they were all sort of variations on each other. They give you a little idea of the flavor of the sort of things that this is good for. Basically, quirky little loops with variations. That's the main thing I would see this as. So good maybe for like sort of, if you were sending this to percussion, could be good for Dilla-style grooves. Because you can play around with the phase of notes in very interesting ways. You get this really weird swing. But also very good, I think, for doing Steve Reich style minimalism, this sort of phase stuff that he did. When I started digging into this morning, this often happens to me with this developer's apps. I didn't really like it that much. I found it a bit unmusical. And there were a lot of things frustrated me about it. But then I spend a bit of time with it and I start getting, really engrossed. And I enjoy the process, but that is definitely not going to be for everyone. I'll also mention right off the bat, there are definitely a fair few little things that I think I would do differently if I was designing an app like this. I've run into some frustrations. Overall though, I'm enjoying it. Again, this sort of app, it's not going to be for everyone. But even if you're not planning on buying this, I think watch this video, you might get some interesting ideas for doing some weird stuff with Midi. So let's talk a little bit about the concept of the app. And for this, I'm going to close it and I'm just going to open it up again because weirdly, it doesn't have any init patch. And a few times I have written the init patch to one of the presets here. But then when I played it again, it sounded different. I don't know what was going on. Don't know if it's a bug or what. So when you open up the app, it's going to sound like this. Very, very simple. And you wouldn't think that there are 8 different note generators in here, but there are, right? So let me just, before I start explaining things, let me just jump in to a few things here and start playing around a little bit and you'll get a kind of idea. Right? You see what I mean? This is this first sort of stuff that you're going to start coming up with and you're going to be like, oh, Jesus, what the hell is this? It's just a load of oil crap, yeah? But actually, then you start playing around with it and, maybe you'll think this is crap, but I like these sort of grooves. So this is, sort of thing I was coming up with. Oh, let's talk about the basic concept. So if you look up here, what each circle represents is an LFO. It's actually a square LFO, even though it's represented here as a circle. So square LFO used, you think about a square LFO, it's basically on, off, on, off. But in this, instead of just being an on or an off, each, the on status of the LFO is going to trigger a certain note, which you define in this pitch section of the app. The thing is, though, you're only dragging, you're not going to see any note names here when you drag these sliders. So you're going to have to do things by ear. But you are putting in different notes here. So basically we have, up to 8 of these LFOs running. Each one in its on phase will generate a particular note, and in its off phase it will generate a note. You could have those all be the same note, right? Which is what it's like in the default patch. Or you can change those notes. So one thing you need to understand very quickly about the UI, otherwise the app will be pretty confusing, is some of these buttons here, like this pitch one, you have to press it 2 times if you want to get everything changing. Because if you look here, A is highlighted. So if I change these sliders, I'm only changing the pitches for the A side of each square. Let's say that's the on side, right? And if I want to change the other side, the off side, then I have to tap here, and now it says B. And this is actually pretty cool, because it's pretty interesting, I think, to just change one side and leave the other side. Because a lot of this stuff, what is interesting is just having a lot of repetition with subtle changes. So it's definitely an interesting concept, I feel. Okay, so the buttons where you can press twice are this pitch button. Now, here, these will all be quantized to the notes that we set in here in the quantize section. And the root note is whichever note is here. You can, if I wanted the G to be the root note, I press like this. I press that axis thing, and that will become the root note. You might not hear any difference. It depends how you've set things up. So if you go into the pitch page, you see at the bottom of each slider, you have a little button which says root. And so if you turn some of those on, it means that now these 4 sliders will only produce that root note, right? But if nothing is, if you don't have root selected or turned on at the bottom of any of the sliders for A or for B, then when you make changes to the root in the quantizer, you won't hear anything. So let's go back here again and just turn on root on a couple of things. Okay, and let's go back to the quantizer. And now let's change the root from F sharp to G. And you will hear something now because 4 of these sliders are locked to the root note. Right, you hear? But those other ones are not locked to the root note. So this can also be quite an interesting thing maybe to play around with during a performance. Right? And then if you want to add in more notes, you just toggle them on. Whether that is actually heard will depend on the position of the slider. I didn't hear any difference there, so there was just no slider in a position where it was triggering an A note. But you can hear now, right? But obviously, you're not going to want that many different, well, I mean, it depends on you, but you're going to want to thin the notes out. Okay. I'm going to go back to read here. I'm just going to reset that. Okay, so that's these root buttons. I hope that's clear now. Shift buttons, these are very cool. So let's just shift all these pitches to the right. So now we're not changing the rhythm. We're just changing the notes, moving them along, so we can move them left, we can move them right. Clock. So here, all at the same rate. Here now, this third generator is at half speed. And the fifth one is now at half speed. And this is quarter speed. Quarter speed. Here, change the master tempo. I would definitely like it if that tempo could be faster. 300 BPM, 450. Although it sounds fast, if you think about the way the divider works here, what I would like sometimes is I have everything maybe around the middle, but then a few notes I want to go really, really fast. And I just find in this, it doesn't really go fast enough for me always. I really would like faster tempo option there. Okay. I just changed the preset there. So here, rate slider. So at the bottom, there's a little reminder, okay, of what is set for this note generator in the clock section, right? Like here, that's full speed, this is half speed, this is quarter speed. Let's just go back to the clock for a second, see? Full speed, half speed, quarter speed. Okay, but now I can change the rate in a freer way. If you look up here at the top, there's only actually 3 notes being generated here, so I won't bother paying attention to these. So you see now all of these are playing super slow. That's kind of nice, right? So you can just sort of feel your way into a groove. Just, you know, and you sometimes you need to stop and listen for a while and see. What the flavor is like. And just changing the rate of one slider can really change the feel of the whole loop. Now let's just put those up full for a second. Phase. So here, take a look at this. This one is short because it has a shorter gate setting, right? But here we're basically seeing the 2 notes created by the square LFO, the on and the off. And now we're basically going to change, like if you think about how we could make one side come sooner. It's hard to explain, but it's easy if you see, just look at the visualizer. So do you see now the small one is basically starting to creep up on the longer one? Right? And now they're overlapping. If I bring these chance sliders down, it'll be very clear. Okay, this is something where you can easily get, you can easily mess up. Because we're there when I adjusted chance, I forgot. I only adjusted the chance of A. So I need to also tap and adjust the chance for B. Let's bring those down. So now we only have this slider making any sound. So let's play with the phase of those. You see now how they almost sound like they're happening at the same time? I bring this down, the delay between them is getting longer and longer. And now they're also sounding like they're almost at the same time. So we're just moving one in relation to the other. So let's go back and bring up those chance sliders again. Let's bring it up for both A and B. Right? And so then you can play around with the phase here for all of these. And again, sometimes it'll sound rubbish, and then you'll sometimes stumble upon something that you think, oh, that's really nice. So now pitch. And again, we've only got 3 things making sound. Sometimes I feel with this app, definitely less is more. I don't always like to have all the sliders going. So again here, pitch, I'm only changing pitch A. And so obviously, as you can hear probably, when you got the slider all the way down, it's going to generate very low notes. Bring it up high, and then you're going to have very high notes. Okay, I'm going to go in and take a different preset here. Okay, so always remember, here, if I make any adjustments, I'm changing the pitch of the A side of the LFOs. B, I'm changing the pitch of the B side. And we can do that for the gates and velocities. And the Midi channels they're sending out on. So, you know, I could trigger different instruments. I'm not going to demo that, but it's easy to set up, obviously. You just, you know, go in here like an AUM. It's very easy to change that sort of thing. If we tap here and scroll down, you have here the channel filter. So I could make this one just receive on channel 1, for example. Then I could set up some other instrument over here and make it just receive on channel 2, set up something else, make it just receive on channel 3, and so on. So I won't demo it, but just to mention the possibility. So chance, again, toggle A or B. Now again, could be cool to use the shift function. Now, I think when you're playing around with this, it can be nice to record the MIDI into something. Here, this app, Take a MIDI, is quite nice for recording the MIDI into, because you can set it up that it will save up to 10 minutes of MIDI. And then you could take that MIDI and, you know, record that, or you could export it or whatever into some other app that allows you to actually edit it. Let's go back here and choose something different. I don't like the preset system in these apps, and I kind of hate it actually because I don't use these apps that much. I mean, it's the nature of doing a channel like this, you know. There are very few apps that I end up using very regularly, just because people are more interested in new stuff, you know? So I'm always having to learn new apps. It means that I don't have that much time to play around with old stuff some of the time. So I keep forgetting, I keep making mistakes with this. Like sometimes I have this set to write and I just don't notice. And I think that I'm on read, and I press one of these to try and recall a preset, and I accidentally write over that preset. And in fact, earlier today, I had already saved 3 different things, and I just accidentally overwrote all of them, and there's no undo and redo. It's one of the things that annoys me a bit. But the other thing, I feel like playing around with this is quite nice to make a whole bunch of different variations, and you can kind of use them as a song mode. Except that, you can't drag things around. You're not really going to remember the order necessarily. I don't know why we can't have preset names here. Because this developer's last app, Strips, it allowed you to write names for presets. And seems here this has gone back to using the older, and to me, even more subpar preset system that doesn't have names. I just don't know why. Wouldn't I want a name even just to remind myself of the scale or the mode or the notes or whatever that I've quantized it to? I definitely would. And I feel like if I was doing kind of jam type things where I created a whole bunch of little variations and saved them, like I've done here. Okay, see there? I accidentally wrote that over this. I didn't mean to. I wanted to read it. I find that very hard to get used to. No undo and redo. It is extremely frustrating for me. But let's say I've saved a whole bunch of little nice things here. You could easily run out of spaces. I just don't like this preset system. It's too much based on hardware. When you've got an iPad app, you can have just a far better preset system than this that doesn't have any limit on the spaces. Hardware controller might have those sort of limits because of, because of the restrictions set by like how many buttons, say, you can fit on that piece of hardware or whatever. And with an iPad, you just don't have that sort of thing. I know a lot of that is an aesthetic choice, and I really like some of this developer's aesthetic choices, but I just don't like the preset system, really. It annoys me. I hate when I accidentally write over something. We go down here to the setup part, and here, if you tap on Midi output, it will detect what are the possible destinations in your system at that moment, and it'll toggle between those. So if you want to receive Midi somewhere, just make sure that whatever you're sending this to is also what you're receiving from over in the other app that you're trying to control. It has here send Midi clock, by the way. But AUM, for example, can't receive Midi. Is it AUM can't send or can't receive Midi clock? I think it can't send. I think it can't receive Midi clock. So I can't actually use this, and this is another one of the limitations. Because you see this tempo slider, it's just not really accurate enough. Like I found sometimes, let's say I really needed to get this, to 75.3. Like it's just not letting me. Either you try very slowly, or it's just not even possible. Like there, it's just jumping from 0.2 to 0.4. This is the sort of thing also that bugs me a bit. I don't mind that much because when I play around with this type of thing, I generally do it where I have this as the only thing that's driving stuff. But that's because I quite like minimalist setups. But I know for a lot of people, they don't, and they would absolutely want to have loads of other things running along with this. And this kind of thing will create problems for them. Let's jump down to the setup page again. So you also have a thing here, randomize on start, where every time you open the app, I mean, I guess I haven't actually tried that. Every time you open the app, it'll have a random sequence. I probably wouldn't use that. I didn't find the random output of this very interesting. So we can also just randomize now. And let's see, is it sticking to this quantizer here? No, it's changed it, right? Yeah. It mostly sounds pretty rubbish, the randomization output. I mean, it's just totally random. Maybe from time to time you'll get something nice. I like the fact it's got a randomizer, but I haven't played around with it a bit. I find it pretty unusable generally. I don't think I would use it much. I mean, you could always use it. You could always use it just to get a completely fresh starting point, but you're absolutely, in the vast majority of cases, going to have to go in and adjust things. At least, you know, maybe play around with the clock divider and stuff. And probably the quantizer and things as well. So let's just have a little bit of a play around. So let's try shifting the clock. So just doing that alone, you can sometimes get something that you think, oh, I really like that. Now, one thing I found was, I wish that in terms of pitch, there was an easy way to push the output up or down an octave for each slider. There's also, by the way, no way to change the master pitch. You know, this will be 440 hertz, I guess. But there's no way to change that. So if you were trying to, you know, jam along with someone that was in a different tuning, you couldn't. Well, actually, you could adjust that maybe in the instrument here. Actually, yeah, and I forget that. Okay, let's play around with pitches a little bit. It's the kind of thing that you know, you'd need to play around with a lot, I think, before you would be confident to use this live without getting a lot of raised eyebrows. So, you know, don't expect a sort of virtuoso performance from me here, guys. Again, you know, sometimes when you make these little rate adjustments, if you do it, especially if you do it a bit too quickly, it might just sound kind of rubbish. But then you listen to it a little bit and you can start to get into it. So you see what I mean? It's the sort of thing that is going to really appeal to some people, and other people are going to be like, nah, no way. I'm definitely more on the side of being into it, but as I mentioned through the video, there are a few little frustrations for me. One thing about the octave stuff, this can be quite useful. So here, I'm using Mosaic and I did a video on this. It's only $2 now, this app, and it's so useful. So here I'm using this chance octaver script from this guy Key, and here I can dial in the chance that I get shifts up or down in octave. Like here, there's a 32% chance that any note received will be shifted up 1 octave. Here, there's a 35% chance that it'll be shifted down 1 octave. And when I start putting this over a certain value, this one will automatically be reduced, so the value of those adds up to 100%. It'd be very useful, I think, if Mills had something like this built into it. Maybe there could be another page with this sort of stuff. I made a few notes on my phone before I started this video about some things that I thought could be improved. So let me just look at those. I've mentioned some of these things, and there may be some I've forgotten, so I'd like to just have this as a little guideline to make sure there's nothing I've forgotten. So about this app, I'd say experimental feel, but you do need to tinker a lot, and there's going to be times when that output is not going to sound all that musical until you maybe get very good at it. One thing I felt was, it's a pity, I mean, it's always a pity for me that this developer's apps are not plugins, they're just standalone. I really felt when I was playing around with this that I would love to modulate things in this app, like for example the rate sliders, or any number of things I might want to modulate, but it doesn't have any MIDI learn system. If it was a plugin, it would be really easy to, modulate all this inside AUM. And I could use, for example, this developer's other app, Strips, which I've been using a lot, a whole bunch of faders sending out CC messages. I could use that to modulate this, and it'd be really nice, but you can't do that. I find that frustrating. The lack of AUV3 support is definitely frustrating. It means I use these apps less than I would if they had AUV3. I've talked about the preset system. I would like names, and it's just too easy for me personally to accidentally overwrite presets when I don't want to. I just can't stand this system. Looks nice, functionality is just not great. Another thing, I can't see any way here to delete presets. I can only overwrite them. As I said earlier, if I was trying to use this as a kind of song mode, I could imagine that I could very quickly run out of preset slots, even though at first glance it looks like there are a lot. As I said earlier, I'd love the clock to be able to go faster than 150. And I wonder if it'd be useful if this could receive MIDI clock as well. Then, like, you could control it from AUM, for example. MIDI clock's not something I personally have thought about much because I generally do everything in AUM and I'm not using any, MIDI hardware or anything. Yeah, I do wish that there was some sort of page here for adjusting the octaves, just quickly doubling or halving the octaves. Everything overall, I'd like that option, but I'd also like that option for individual sliders. You're really playing blind when you select here. That's another thing. I feel like overall, using faders like this to dial in notes, although it's kind of cool, it is not actually, like, from a musical perspective, it's not very ideal at all. something like this kind of UI, where, you know, I can see this note, this is the synthesizer, which is a real iOS classic, which I did a video on. Something like this is far better than faders. Here, when you quantize things, you only have those notes available, right? Which is very similar to Mills. But the difference here is that I can very precisely adjust exactly what note is going to be played when the playhead hits here. And if I want, you know, to put this up an octave, it's very easy for me to just see, oh, there we go. Now it's up an octave. You know, now it's down an octave. This is not making any sound at the moment. I'm just, you know, mentioning that. So fader UI here, it's not ideal in my opinion. I do love the shift function. That can produce some really interesting results very quickly. And I like the overall concept of the app. It's definitely different. And I do personally like some of the little noodles that I came up with while learning the ins and outs of this. Like I say, it's the kind of app, though, that you'd need to spend a lot more time with if you really wanted to get good at it. And that's always the way with this developers apps. The good side of that, though, is that they're a bit like a game in that sense, you know? Everyone is a bit different. You have to approach it in a different way, and it can be rewarding. It's just not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Okay, so there are all the chance sliders down, no sound. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.